Okay, we are recording. Bobby, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Bit rough.
Good. You're a bit rough today.
Yeah, we were out last night. We have a kind of like a Monday club where we all get together. But
Oh,
we
right.
we spent the whole day yesterday in the studio, me and Ken, working on the new Bluebells album. So we were out afterwards for a few drinks.
How's that going?
It's going great. Yeah, almost finished. So should be out next start of next year.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. We'll get back to that
Okay,
as the conversation unfolds.
okay.
But I always start with the first track, and that's about the intro. And so I'm going to ask you to kick off your playlist, Bobby, and tell me the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
Well, such a hard question that. So like the best just going with your instinct, aren't you? I mean, the one I was playing this a lot recently. It's the Birds with Chestnut Mare. And I really like the way the song just goes straight into the song. There's kind of like no intro. It's just high on a hill. The prettiest mirror I've ever seen. And I just think I know a little bit about the song. I know that it was for a musical that the Birds were working on. It never got done, which kind of explains, I think, the way the song's written. Like it is. There's quite a bit of talking in the song. Where the guy's telling you basically the story of how he tried to capture this chestnut mare, and and then the singing bits and the melody and the guitar playing is just beautiful. So it's always stuck in my head, this song, from the moment I heard it. I always thought it was like a sort of like, I guess you would call it a rap song now, but
Yeah.
in the late '60s it was quite a common thing in country songs to have spoken bits. I think you might have heard Elvis Costello doing a song called Psycho, which we
Mm.
which we really loved, and it's more or less a guy talking about killing children. Really, it's a really strange song, and I think country music, I think talking was kind of like accepted genre really in that kind of music, and in Chestnut Mare, the Birds, obviously it's a very country album entitled. Graham Parson is involved in it, and I just think it's a fantastic song.
Were the birds like an influence in the early days? Because when I hear the birds and I hear that kind
Yeah.
of that jangle, I can hear that
Oh
so
yeah.
much in so much of the sort of the Scottish scene and the postcard scene
It was
through to
it
fan
was
club and
massive.
stuff like that. Was it big for
Yeah,
you?
it was massive. I think, like, with us and the orange juice, the 12-string guitars, the Rickenbackers, the West Coast sound they called it, and we were the West Coast of Scotland.
Yeah.
So it was like, I think that they also did a great cover of Wild Mountain Time, the Birds, a very famous kind of Scottish song, and they did it in a really modern way. I think the Birds are very what's the word, unchampioned band. If it wasn't for the Birds, you probably wouldn't have got Dylan going electric. You probably wouldn't have got the Beatles changing the sound so much. I think the Birds really took folk music, which was big at the time, protest songs, and they really brought something to it. I know they were influenced themselves by the Searchers and people like that, but the Birds, that so when we started the band, the Bluebells, it was very much in my head. They had three singers, the Birds, and then they had Gene, like just playing Gene Clark, just playing the tambourine and singing. And I always thought Ken was like that. I was a bit like Roger McGuinn, you know what I mean? Like, and I always thought Russell was a bit like Dave Crosby. So I thought that we had a three-pronged lineup, like the Birds, and it was a major influence. Even the name the Bluebells, we picked the name because we wanted to fit in the B section, and of the record shops, like the Beatles, the Birds, Buffalo Springfield.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, so we knew we just thought, well, we'll be in the same rack as the Birds and the Beatles and Buzzcocks. You know what I mean, so it was all very naive, because we always assumed right from the start that we were going to be in the record racks and we were going to be on the same. So we never thought for a second we wouldn't get to make records. We just assumed it was going to happen. So we planned accordingly.
I want to ask you a little bit about intros now,
Yeah.
and as a songwriter, in and out of the Bluebells,
Yeah.
like tell me how you approach an intro because we now live in a world where the the attention span of people seems to be shortening. Certainly, the generations coming through, and
Absolutely.
and through streaming services, it's like you got to grab them. And and do you feel the pressure now working on this record maybe different to how you did back when you was writing in the sort of early 80s? Like to does as your mindset, I'm going around the answer with this question, I'm trying to
No, that's a good question.
frame
I
it. Just
get,
wondering
get
how
that,
you
yeah.
approach it now.
Well, the thing is, it's like, when we were around, it was still the tail end of the era when radio was king, so you had to grab people's attention very, very quickly. I think they called it I think it was 20, 21 seconds you had to,
Yeah.
was the average listening time of a record if someone took it off or it didn't get past the committee onto the playlist. And I think the Beatles, the people were really important in that context. You think of the first few Beatles songs, the intros were really important. George Martin, the harmonica, "Love Me Do," "Please Please Me." They really wanted to grab your attention. And then the Beatles were one of the first bands who would actually start with a chorus: "Can't buy me love," straight into it, no hesitation. Don't bore us. Get to the chorus.
Yeah.
And when we were on Postcard with that kind of period, Alan Horn was always going. We were always going about the Monkeys, and he would play things like he would say like "Last Train to Clarksville." Would you write a song that starts like that? Down down. So I did every Somebody's Fool, which down 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 down, and that intro alone kind of got us a lot of attention. Start with Cath with the harmonica again. We and the start of Van Fallen with the kind of like the we tried to get that from Buffalo Springfield's "Expecting to Fly" with the strings kind of creeping in and the little echoey guitar part. So we were very much thinking along the lines of your suggestion. We were. I think nearly every band where like Orange Juice, Nash Tech Camera, and All the Images. You think about all their intros, and I mean all the production at that time, especially in the 80s, was geared to get you on Radio One,
Yeah.
and Radio One was very much a threshold to being successful, because if they played you, then you were going to have a hit, really.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to ask you now to tell me the
Yeah.
first song you remember hearing, Bobby, that had an emotional impact on you, please.
Well, there is so many, but the one I've kind of gone with on this is Fleetwood Mac doing Man of the World. Peter Green sings it, and I remember. I mean, even if I was 11 or 12, when you're hearing a song like that, like I probably heard it through my brothers or through the radio, that he's probably a really young guy and he's singing that song, but it feels like he's talking to you, right? About, I'm telling you what to expect here, right? And, don't be scared, but this, and it's a beautifully played. I don't know if you know the song, but
Mm.
gorgeous song. I mean, Peter Green, I know he's a fantastic guitar player, but people don't seem to realise what a fantastic singer he is,
Yeah.
And that's an absolutely beautiful song. I mean, I hear that song now, nearly a lot of Paul Weller music, I hear the way that it's influenced a lot of people, like, especially, I mean, us especially. I mean, Fleetwood Mac at that time was so different from what they became. Obviously less successful, but things like Albatross and Green Man Alicia and all those, Oh Well, another kind of more or less a rap song when you
Yeah.
think about it, and I think that what they had the same idea as the Birds, the three front men, the three guitar players, the different angles of attack, if you want to call it, like we were dead pleased with ourselves when we had like me singing a song and Ken singing a song. And it was like, it always felt very like the Beatles, like
Mm.
George, John, and Paul. And I think that's something that quite a few bands at that time, The Clash, obviously, with Mick Jones and the two different sides of The Clash.
Mm.
Mick Jones, a very different kind of singer from Joe Strummer, but again, it gave you that lovely change of direction, and I think that's the great thing about that Fleetwood Mac song. It's not a blues song, it's not a rock song. It's almost like a folk song, and
Yeah.
it's just a great song. In fact, I'm going to put it on after I speak to you now.
Oh, it's such a beautiful record, and I've never thought of it as you said there, like Peter Green must have been so young when he made that, and he's
Yeah,
bestowing all this like feels like a lifetime of wisdom of
it
like
does.
what to expect, and yeah, he was probably early 20s. It's
And,
crazy.
and I tell you, I think, Stuart, it's dead funny what we learned. See, when you're singing a song through a microphone and recording it, there's an incredible kind of like energy in you, like tingles down your spine, right? And then there's records like that, right, where you can actually feel the tingles coming out of his voice when he's singing that. You know that he's thinking, this is just sounding fantastic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, and I'm the one singing it, and so the energy. I think vinyl really captures that. Even more. I know it's all supposed to be crap, right? But I think the physical connection between a needle and the wax or the metal, whatever it's making the record on, does transmit better than just digitally. I don't know. I'm not explaining it very well, but you know what I
I
mean. I do
I
feel
I, I
cool.
totally get that because,
Yeah,
and I don't just think it's that experience alone. I think it's the full experience of for me growing up and to this day still when I put a record on
yeah,
as an obsessive, I'm devouring the sleeve. I'm
yeah.
looking at the artwork,
Absolutely,
and you don't
absolutely.
get when you
No,
see these like coffee table books of the greatest record sleeves of all time.
yeah,
None of them have come in the last 20 years, Bobby,
no,
because
no,
nobody can see a record sleeve when it's that big on your phone anymore. And
yeah.
like all that iconic artwork was meant to be devoured in
And
12 inches.
it was all thought out. It was all part of the process. I mean, especially the Beatles. I'm obsessed with the Beatles books, but the thought. I guess a lot of it's to do with McCartney, but the thought and process of finding Richard Hamilton, Peter Blake, and finding these people, even the Velvet Underground with Warhol,
Mm.
and thinking this isn't just about the songs. This is the whole, like you said. I mean, I probably got about 10 copies of the White Album.
Yeah,
Right? Every time I see one, I'm going to buy it.
yeah.
Because it's just a beautiful product. Even I think even more than Sergeant Pepper. I think that the thought on that is just fantastic, and these are things that you can't really get anymore on records. You don't get that sprawl of songs, and then the orders carefully worked out. And now we can just press shuffle, and the
Yeah.
whole beautiful process that they went through to take you on a journey through those songs is kind of gone already.
We've kind of had, as you just said there, the way that things have been kind of changed now, where all of a sudden the album isn't so much a body of work for the
Yeah,
generations coming through. And they're just cherry picking playlists and
yeah,
like this new record that you're putting together now. Is this still going to be in the format of this is a body of work? It's a piece of
yeah.
art.
We've done it. We've done it very much like there's a great bit of TV on just now on Prime with the Rolling Stones doing "Sympathy for the Devil." Like I think it's showing Jean-Luc Godard as some the guy made a film called One and One is One or something, and the Beatles and the Stones are in doing "Sympathy for the Devil," and they're all in the same studio playing the song. So we're doing that. We're all in the studio at the same time, playing at the same time, singing at the same time, and it's we did the last album a little bit more, you know, using technology like in each other's houses and preparing the tracks individually. And on this one, it's been a completely collaborative process, again. And that's what it was when we first recorded as the Bluebells in London with Elvis and people like that. That was the most exciting bit. I mean, my most exciting period in the Bluebells was when we first went to Maida Vale and worked with Buffin, and we did the Kid Jensen sessions or radio sessions, and you had 2 hours to do 4 songs. You know, it didn't matter how they sounded at the end. We're going to broadcast it. I'll tell you what, they're still some of the best work we've ever done, and then I'm so glad to say that they're going to be on the new box set that's coming out. The radio sessions are going to be on that, and I can't wait to hear them again because I remember thinking at the time, fuck, we sound great. And the energy, when we're playing together. And I remember the guy Buffin used to be in What Hoople, which was one of my favourite bands. He was a drummer, right? He was the most sarcastic, mischievous, you know, he just used to take the piss out of us, all of us, because he's probably had 5 bands in a day.
Yeah.
Listen, mate, if you can't sing it, fuck off and get someone to sing it. I mean, right, And then you go, we say things like, how does the guitar sound? He goes, "It's your fucking guitar, isn't it? Is it, do you want to sound any different from this? Is, So there was no, but he was brilliant. He got a great sound, and he really brought out the best in you. That kind of, you take responsibility for this, guys. It's your band.
Yeah.
I'm here to record you. You don't fucking ask me, is this bit any good? Fucking do it, And it really got you through, I think if you listen to all those sessions, all those bands, Security Abilities, and, you know, Lloyd Cole, all the ones that did it, I think that some of their best work
Yeah.
are in those radio sessions because it's unfiltered. There's not a record company guy going, oh, you need a fiddle on this, you need this, you need all. There's none of those guys. It's like, oh, make the chorus, bring the chorus in sooner. You're just doing it the way you wrote the song, and you're all playing it together, which is a
Yeah.
great feeling. Great feeling.
I'm going to ask you for track three, Bobby, to tell me
Okay,
the song that reminds you of your time at school, please.
okay. Well, school in Glasgow in the 70s, secondary school. Glasgow is notorious for gangs, and urban violence. I mean, I love school, and I lived in an area where if I went to visit a friend in Pollock, I had to come walk by five gangs really to get home safely. I never got in any fights, I never got in any trouble, never got any bullying. But you're very aware of the dangers out there. It's a bit like that film, The Warriors.
Yeah.
You and you're 13 or 12, right? And I remember my dad telling me like, just don't catch their eye. If they call you a prick, just ignore them. Keep walking. Don't cross the road. Never run. Right? Don't and don't say anything back. Just walk. Them. You're not, and you won't be involved in anything. And I always stuck to that, and it seemed to get us by, But one of the biggest things that got you by was if you were carrying the right album under your arm, if your duffel coat right, it was almost like I'm okay, I'm don't slag me, I'm quite cool, right? And one of those albums that really got you through was Electric Warrior, by T-Rex, right? And that album was like, if you took that album to school, it was like saying, especially when you first started school, I'm a good person to talk to, you know what I mean? Like, you know, come over. It's not ELP. Do you know what I mean? Right? It's not, it said you like girls, right? But you weren't violent. If you know what I mean, the message on that cover and the songs on that cover really, Matt Bolan was kind of real cool, a really cool thing. You know what I mean? Like he had long
Yeah.
curly hair for a start, right? He wasn't a skinhead. He wasn't afraid to wear clothes that made you stood out. He was quite small, I guess, as well. But so off that album, I picked Life's the Gas,
Yeah.
right? Because at the time, it genuinely was for us because we were going to see T-Rex, me and the friends I made. We went to see the Stones. We saw Billy when he was Ziggy. And we were 13 or 12, right? And the whole of the theatre, it was called Green's Players at the time, became the Apollo, was full of kids our age, you know. And that's never going to happen again. Do you know what I mean? It's never going to happen the same way, where we could queue up all night to buy Stones tickets for Goat's Head Soup, right? And your parents aren't on the phone going, "Where are you?" You know, and there's a kind of real feeling of freedom being a child then now. I'm a parent, so I do want to know my boys all the time. But then my dad was in night shift. He was at work in the shipyard. He didn't. He came home. He went to bed. I went to school. When I came back from school, he went to work. And mum had three other boys to look after. So we were kind of feral. There was no set dinner times or lunch times. It was like when you came home, you came home, and then if you went, we had paper rounds, so we had money, so we could go and buy tickets. So it was it's a fantastic time. And again, that song, I mean, it really does sum up the fact that life was a gas. You know what I mean? And I think all of us who I think right now, if you went round and asked every person you knew if you who you liked, if they had electric water, they would say yes.
Yeah.
So I think there's no higher tribute than that, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Did you did you have any idea what you wanted to be when you was at school? Was music already
No,
factoring into? Right.
I mean, it's dead funny. I mean, it's like I was really, I mean, I'm geeky now, but I always felt at that age, 13 or 14, you really become aware of the way you look, especially in regards to girls, you know. So it was like part of your psyche's taken up with just fitting in, with making good friends, you know. So you don't, there is no future, you know what I mean? Like you're not really thinking about, you know, college or uni. I never thought of anything. I just thought of like how am I going to go off a girl, really, you know, and like was I going to be the last of the gang, you know,
Yeah.
to meet a girl, man, you know. But we were just having a great time. It was just football all day and rugby and records and then learning how to drink, you know, horrible
Yeah.
pints, you know, in the woods. You know what I mean, like, and then finding, you know, new magazines and thinking you'd hit the jackpot, man. Do you know what I mean? You know, someone's old disused magazine, you know, and so that was like that's what growing up was, and it wasn't anything to do with technology, you know, and it was a really great thing, you know. You had to walk everywhere, you know. You had no one. It was yeah. You really saw like underage drinking was very possible in those days because there was no ID cards or you know no phones. No, I mean, I, I mean, I don't want to sound all nostalgic or yearning for the past, I mean, but you kind of got to say that like I mean things like COVID and all that. Society's changed a lot, you know,
Yeah.
and the people's dependency. You know, I mean, it's. I mean, I never even been to a doctor. When I cut my leg, I remember going home, really bad cutting my leg, and I just put wrapped a tea towel around it, a wet tea towel. You know, still got the scar. Right? My mum came home, goes, "What's that on your knee?" You know, that was the end of the bottle was still in there. The glass was still in my knee. Do you mean
Yeah.
right? But there's no you know right? You know, or I've got a slight pain in my ankle, better you know, or so there is a real sort of like you know toughness that children are. I think they're getting it another way now. They're watching all these shitty TikTok things of people dying and falling off cliffs, or you mean are getting smashed by lorries. And I think, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? Right? You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
get out
A-
and find out for yourself. You know.
Absolutely. Before we move on to the next track, I just want
Yep.
to go back a little bit and just tell me about um, where home was at this point, and was home like a musical environment? Was the radio on at home? Did your parents have records?
Well, my mum was Italian, so we had a Italian cafe around the corner, and then they used to sell jukebox singles for a 5p or a penny, you know, like and a shilling. Some depends what how many there were. So when you changed the jukebox around, you could buy the records off them. And also, we had a lot of Italian records. I love Italian music, you know. So we'd bring them back from Italy because in Italy we had a little uh, one of those little record players. You just slip the records inside. You know, it's one by
Yeah.
batteries. Like and like they were brilliant. I guess they were like Walkmans or something. Those, but it was actually a record you put in it. You know, right? So I brought that back with me. But most of the records, I mean, it wasn't so much records as much as Radio Luxembourg and those kind of stations that you
Yeah.
found and listened to music. Well, I remember hearing things like Simple Simon's Amazing Dancing Bear, right? You know, Alan Price and Rosetta, you better. I remember thinking, these are fucking great, you know, and
Yeah.
they were all just records in the charts at the time. I remember things like Ashton Gavin and Dyke, Resurrection Shuffle, right, and thinking, fuck's sake, you know, and then you have to go to school discos, and then you'd have to start buying LPs, you know, when you got to secondary school, and I didn't have any LPs, so I was taking my brother's LPs, and they had like a Rudy Blues, Every Good Boy Deserves Favour, and things like that, and then you realise, don't take that in again, Tarkus, do you know what I mean, right, you know, like Uriah Heep, you know, right, you better start finding your own thing, you know. But before that age, the first record I ever bought was Mother of Mine by Neil Reed, and I bought it from my mum, right, you know, right, with my pocket money, man, right, and I walked into town to get it, and she was dead chuffed. I mean, it's not a great, it's good luck to the wee boy, and I think he went up with shooting notes. I still love the song actually, but at the same time, I bought Rocket Man by Elton John, right, because I had the gatefold sleeve. And I'd never even heard the song really. I just thought it's got a gatefold sleeve and the record was sitting inside the thing. And he had a cowboy hat, I think, and a white something that's in the front, not a Rocket Man at all, you know. And I remember thinking, this is a great song. I mean, I really, the bit at the end, and I think it's gonna be a long, long time. I think I've stole that about 50 times now in songs, that kind of outro, But I remember thinking that really got me into it. And then it was kind of non-stop T-Rex obsession after that. I still got a lot of the record. I mean, it's funny as you get older, all you try and do is find the records you gave away, lost,
Yeah,
or sold when you were younger, right? Right? And you're thinking, fuck, I gave that to Jerry fucking in 1976, and I feel like phoning up and saying,
yeah,
he never gave me that back. Do you know what I mean? Right? Like, but then, and I was always drawn to the covers. Like was mentioned before, like Family had a cover like opened and opened up. Like, and then they did one that was a TV shit. I said Alice Cooper had a desk, with girls' pants inside it. You
yeah,
know, Matt Electric Warrior had that fantastic poster. And then the drawings and then the sleeve. Everything was just wonderful. I mean, it was like, you're
yeah,
thinking, my God, the sleeves were just a complete joy,
yeah,
and even like the Beatles and Paul McCartney and John Lennon, like, they had postcards inside them and posters, and, they really, really, you really felt you were getting something. And then as we progressed into the punk phase, you get to that stage where when you bought the Clash album, inside there was a little card and you could send it away and get
yeah,
the White Riot from the NME. I remember buying about two or three Clash albums before I got one with the card in it, and I still got. I mean, like, but I didn't care. I didn't care
yeah,
having to. I was giving to people and saying, it felt like you were discovered something
yeah,
completely incredible, and you wanted to pass it around to people. That's what the great thing about records is. It is a really great experience. Even cassettes, and I mean, I know you can swap CDs, but CDs were never quite the same. I know they're really popular again now, but I'm getting more into cassettes now. I quite like that
yeah,
because you can't fuck about with a cassette. You can't fast forward it. You
yeah,
have to listen to it, and it's still got the hiss on it.
yeah,
Right, so that's still a pleasurable experience.
yeah. Tell me a little bit about I mean you sort of love of the sort of glam stuff like T-Rex
Yeah,
and Bowie
yeah,
you've mentioned, but you also referenced at the beginning the Buzzcocks and that, and obviously you've just
yeah,
touched on the Clash there. As a young lad, when it gets to 77, 78,
yeah,
and it all starts exploding in a world that seems to be very DIY
yeah.
and doable, how much of an influence did that have on you and music?
Well, it had a big influence because it kind of happened a little bit before that. Before punk, there was a kind of like thing in, I think it was in Sounds about the Velvet Underground, right? And a book came out called Uptight, but it was to do with the hunky dory and Bowie saying some VU returned with love, right? Queen Bitch, right? So when you're kind of like a schoolboy, this is a code, right? Oh fuck, I better find out what VU is,
Yeah,
because I want to look knowledgeable in school. Oh yeah, that's Bowie talking about the Velvet Underground, you know what I mean? Like, and Lou Reed and that sort of stuff. And that got us all into the Velvets, you know what I mean? Like, and the Velvets at that time was one album. It was kind of a Coca-Cola album, it was a compilation. So because it was really hard to find the original Velvet Underground records. There wasn't a lot of them around. I mean, I found me and Edmund used to go to Paddy's Market and find them down there. But there was no eBay and there was no, Discogs. You were finding the records,
yeah,
and you were finding them in second-hand shops. Even, I mean, it's the same now, but it's not quite the same now because Oxfam and all these fuckers have got, you know, Google every record now and they say, well, this record's worth £100. You go, no, that's a fucking old tatty copy. Right? The
yeah,
one that's worth £100 is unplayed, untouched, and
yeah,
right. So stop saying it's 100. Give us it for a fiver, man, because it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
worth. No one's ever going to buy it for that price. You know what I mean? Like, this is, I go around Glasgow doing this to people nowadays saying, stop selling these at these, stop looking up Google,
I
man.
can just picture everybody in the charity. Oh, fucking hell,
You
Bobby's
know
here
what?
again.
It is exactly like that.
Hide the records. Bobby's outside.
I know. Well, I'll go in and it's like, say there's a copy of like Black Sabbath, like, Master Rattler, and they've got it for £70. I'm going, you can't even play this. Do you know what I mean, right? It's actually got paint on it. Do you know what I mean, right? Right? Do you know what I mean, right? Well, why do you want it for? Because it's second-hand record and it's I want it because it's a second-hand record. I don't want it because I'm going to fucking keep it and leave it in my will to my son. Here's a very rare copy of Masters of, by Black Sabbath, Take this, son, and in 50 years' time, take it to the Antiques Roadshow, and they're going to go, that's £1,000 record. Do you know what I mean? Right? I mean, it's just nonsense. Do you know what I mean? It's the same with guitars. I look up guitars now, and you're thinking, well, £8,000? Are you crazy? It's
Yeah.
a £2,000 guitar at the very, very most. You know what I mean? Oh no, this is from the Kalamazoo factory, and no, listen, fuck. It's all those bits are new. That's new pickups. That's new. Do you know what I mean? Like the neck's probably different, and it's not the same. It's like that sketch you seen. I remember Only Fools and Horses. I've had this brush in the family for 50 years.
Yeah, triggers
It's
broken.
a new handle. It's a new head. Do you know what I mean? So get all that stuff to start really, and just go back to where you found treasure, and it wasn't looked up, researched, and you found it,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
just yours. So that was it.
Bobby, I'm going to move forwards a little bit
Yeah,
now, and in the years that follow, their sort of
yeah,
school years, you start going out and you start going clubbing,
yeah,
and I'm interested to know that the track that kind of you recall as really sort of soundtracking them
yeah.
times.
Well, I was lucky enough at the tail end of the Bluebells that I got into DJing, and I used to be just DJing at the Bluebells parties in the sub club, but then I kind of got, and a manager at the time, he owned the sub club, so I kind of got DJing there, and I ended up working with a guy called Ron McCulloch in Colin Bar, people who ran all the clubs in Glasgow, so I was doing the artwork and DJing, and the one song that I remember going to clubs and loving at the time, and then here we are in the 21st century, and it's still a big part of my set is Sister Sledge, thinking of you. And there's no club in the world where you put that on and no one and people don't dance, and it's got the most beautiful intro,
I was
right?
about to say a Nile
Yeah,
Rodgers intro in
yeah,
anything is amazing.
exactly. And then you hear it and you think, oh, and then slowly but surely you can see people getting up one at a time and walking to the dance floor, right? And by the time they all get to the dance floor, the song hits in, and then there's so many great remixes of it, so many great, you know, you could play that song all night, and I don't think
Yeah,
anyone would get bored with it. I think
yeah,
that's probably his greatest song.
yeah. I mean,
Great singing himself.
he ain't shy of a hit, is he? He's
No, he's just a machine, isn't he?
yeah,
I think he's just got that. I think you could, if you just start and played that guitar over anywhere,
yeah,
the person next to him is going to make up a song over it in 2 seconds
yeah,
flat. Do you know what I mean? But, he needs just to sit there and play it, and then they're going to sing it. So that's definitely the one I would go with.
yeah. So how was that like to sort of whilst doing the band to kind of find your feet in sort of DJ culture as well, which I imagine around that time was really starting to become
It was
a
massive.
big
Well,
thing.
when we got back in the charts in 1993, it was Young at Heart #1. I was making more money from the DJing than I made it from Young at Heart as a song.
Mm.
I was DJing every night, and then one of the nights I was getting all the door money, from the club, and DJing. I miss it now. I haven't DJed really since COVID, but what I miss is you really find great things. Like I mean, it's like the DJs are all different. They might play the same songs, right, but they really don't. They might play the same tracks, but the very speed and the key changing and the pardon me, and the order you play the songs in is so important. The build up. I mean, I used to always think of it as like a journey. Like you start really slowly, and the plane's kind of taking off, right, and then you get the lift off, right, and then everybody's right, and then you're at altitude height. Everybody's all just dancing, right, and you're at altitude height for the most of the flight, right, and then you start to come down, and then you land. And I always thought that the end of the set was as important as any other bit of the set,
Yeah, yeah,
and the start.
absolutely.
I mean, and then what you discovered was the best songs that all the DJs played, including myself, all came at the start. They're the ones when no one was there. The people I used to go to clubs with my girlfriend really early, right? Because she worked at a lot of them, and I went to this club called Optimal, and the amount of songs that they played there, they played things like Suicide. I mean, like Ghost Riders in the Sky, right, and things you would never expect in a techno club, right? It's because they were having fun too, and they were finding out how they were finding out what songs they could bring in later on in the set, like things like Zorba
Yeah.
the Greek and all that, and Love, Everybody's Going to Die, right? I remember one night being in Sub Club and we were playing that at the end of the night, and it's a really strange, brilliant feeling, euphoric to see the whole crowd singing, Everybody's Going to Die, everybody's going to have a good time. That's the reason why, right? And
Yeah.
then you're thinking, that's guts to do that, man. And that's really
Yeah.
knowing your crowd, and that's your crowd following you into that thing. And then when Ibiza and all that became a big thing, and a lot of songs like Over the Moon and all that songs started becoming dance floor favourites too, And it club. I mean, this the club scene isn't really the same anymore. No offense to David Guetta's and Calvin Harris's and things, but it's not really. I mean, when I was DJing at the end, it was all the kind of songs I was playing. And I was in a big city club, and it was all about making money. And to be fair, I remember going to see people like Carol Cox in New York, and Carol Cox is massive in Glasgow, and he played Madonna. Do you know what I mean? Right? He played Lady. He was playing the hits of the day because it was a 3,000 capacity club.
Yeah.
He was there to make, and he was getting paid a lot of money. He wasn't there to play techno, for 30-minute tracks, just a drum beat, These people were in their clothes and they wanted to get their hands in there and they wanted, to sing to each other. So that's a lesson in itself too. I mean, we're there to entertain. I mean, obviously you've got to reflect your personality, but in the end, if no one's come to the club or buying your records, it's because you are in, it isn't someone else's fault. It's basically your fault. I mean, like
Yeah.
if you, I mean, the Beatles and the Stones and everybody I can think of, even the Velvets, they all wanted to be number one. They were in it to make art. Don't get me wrong, make
Mm.
great records, but they wanted to make great records that people bought. I mean, even John Lennon will tell you when he did the first Plastic Ono album, John Lennon album with Mother on it, and the next one was Imagine,
Yeah.
sugarcoating the same songs, but here come the strings, here come the pianos, here comes me singing in my nice voice, here's the chorus.
Yeah.
It was, he knew what he was doing, and same with Bowie. I mean, people don't understand. David Bowie's biggest, most successful song is Modern Love, right? No one involved picked that. No one will say to you, if you ask anybody involved, what single song made Bowie the most money? No one's going to say, Get me to the church on time.
It's
But
got
it
one of
was
the best intros, Modern Love,
exactly,
though.
again, it's also a great song too, but it's not in his canon of
Yeah.
fantastic Bowie songs. He's
Mm.
like Changes or Life on Mars or, Ziggy's. It's all Modern Love. Oh, yeah. But he did that on purpose. He was skint. He knew
Yeah.
what he was doing. He got Niall Rodgers and people in. I need to make money. Here comes Let's Dance. Here
Yeah.
comes the album that's going to make me a lot of money where I
Yeah.
can, well, then we go back to being an artist again,
Yeah.
pay the bills. It's all about
Yeah.
paying the bills anyway in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it weren't much after Let's Dance that he decided to do Absolute Beginners, and
Yes,
which I also think is an amazing underrated
fantastic
record.
song.
And like,
Fantastic song. Great
and
song. I mean, I think it's a brilliant record too. You're absolutely right. And then he
yeah,
went through that kind of tin machine
yeah,
thing, which again, I don't know. I've never actually listened to him. I bet you there's something good in there too. But I
yeah,
mean, I kind of lost Billy after Scary Monsters for me. I never really got back
yeah,
into the same way that I did when it was Low and Lodger and and Uncle Dory's and all those. I mean, it was a really what a period of what a set of records that is. It's
yeah.
astonishing.
Ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
astonishing.
I'm okay. So the club's shut, and I'm going to
Yeah,
take you back home,
yeah,
and I want to know for this track, Bobby, a favourite song from
yeah.
an artist from your home county, please.
Well, that one's easy for me because for me it's the one that really you know got me, made me in my head think I'm going to be in a band with is Orange Juice Blue Boy. And I'd become really friendly with Edwin and Orange Juice and Postcard and Blue Boy. I came friend with him during Falling and Laughing period, and then I was there the time when they were writing and doing Blue Boy, and it was about to come out, and the whole thing. And I remember thinking, this is probably possibly the greatest song I've ever heard in my life, and that included the Beatles and the Stones and the Velvets. Even I think subconsciously even the name the Bluebells came from Blue Boy. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't, I wouldn't have been that obvious, but I was so enamored with Edwin and the whole postcard thing, but that song, the whole drum beat, the words, in my eyes, she saw the poison you tasted, right, like the whole thing, I knew it was all about what it was kind of about. I think it's about Pete Shelley and the Buzzcocks. They'd been to see the Buzzcocks, and I think Pete Shelley was on the verge of coming out. He was seeing a guy in Glasgow that we all knew called Paul Naughty. He was part of the postcard scene. So I think I think Eben really captures the whole thing. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
in the coding, I can see the coding. We all can, because if you knew, but it's such a great song. It makes sense without any meaning. It's just a fantastic
Mm.
song, and the energy. Obviously, Honest just made more great records, but I think that for me, that's always going to be the peak.
As a southerner,
Yeah,
we my love of music, and you look at the postcard scene, and it's it looks like it was pure magic, and there was such
yeah,
a hotbed of creative talent all just coming through together, and it just
yeah,
seems so vibrant and exciting. Like, as somebody that was in the middle of it, like, is that a true perception of it?
yeah. Well, for me, it was life changing. You mean like it's like they were so encouraging to us at the start, even Alan, and later on it changed as we got more competitive and more. I think like it's like we're all, I think we're all fine now, but I'll never forget them. I'll never forget. I'll never been ungrateful for what they led us to do, and like even being under their wing for a brief time, was amazing. Obviously there was times when they slagged the fuck out of you. It could make you cry. They were so cruel, and then other times they would dismiss you, and it was very competitive and at the same time very cooperative. If that makes any sense, like if I mean if it's like if every time we had that Edmund write a song, right, and anything, it just made me think, you know, you've got to do it. You've got to. How could you not want to write a song? The magic of hearing the song starting in a bedroom. Like I was when he wrote a song called "My Dying Day." I remember him starting it, and then I remember him playing it at a concert in Sucky Hall Street, and then I remember it being a record and thinking, "Wow, that whole process is something you've really got to want to do, man." You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, if you had any love of music, you'd you'd want to experience that, even if it didn't get you anywhere. You'd want to be going through that process. It's one time in Glasgow, like every single person I probably knew was signed to a major label, and that's probably 70, 80 people. I'm talking about people we met every night in a bar or a club, you know, and it even now we still work with David Henderson, who I first met through Simple Minds. He's our sound guy, I still work with Johnny from Altered Images and Hipsway, still work with Skin, who was in Hipsway, and like we're all, we work with people like James Kirk and Justin Curry's, and the whole, and Norman, James Grant. We're all still working together, and that's a 40-year friendship. So I don't
Yeah.
know how you can explain that, but it's nothing but support, and it's like, I did a thing the other day there for Guy Davis Sound of the 80s, like you had to pick your songs. And I picked Hipsway, you know, because when Honey Teeth hit the charts, we were genuinely excited. Do you know what I mean, for them? Like the same, like you're supporting Celtic Rangers, right?
Yeah.
And we were in the charts. They were genuinely excited for us. I used to hang about all the music all the time and go in the van right down to do the first John Peel session, the first Banshees gig. Jerry, the manager, got me my first band. He took me, and they were already assembled. Right. So just supporting us in a week's time, you better write some songs. Right. That's how thing. I know it sounds like a film, but it's exactly what
Yeah,
happened.
yeah,
And then Jerry, me, Jerry helped us, the Bluebells, took us into with all the images on tour, same as Orchis did, helped us get, work out how to get contracts done, even now with working with Texas and Johnny and all that. It's an amazing thing to think that we met in 1978, 79, and no, Texas are a massive band, right? It's amazing to think that we've got a box set coming out, we're recording a new album, we're doing Glastonbury. It's like, it's there's no point in any of our lives we thought that would happen. Do you know what I mean? Right? So you see, I say that to my boy all the time. You know, you've got to enjoy it. You got to be part of. You got to turn up. Like, it's so easy for kids now just to sit in the room with their headphones and their VR sets on, and it's not really. And it's not really. I say to Ruben all the time. The only thing that gets you anywhere is other people, right? And other people say to you, like Jerry did, come with me in the car. There's a band, right? That's your band. You're called the Oxfam Warriors. You're playing with us at the bungalow next week. And then you either decide there and then, okay, or you turn around and walk out. And guess what? You won't be back to the next day. That's the one moment you get. Like if Elvis
yeah,
coming to see us in ICA and saying to us, oh, do you want to come and record with me tomorrow in the studio? We don't go, oh no, we're going back to Glasgow, oh no, we've got something on. Do you know what I mean? You just say fucking yes, you know what I
yeah,
mean? You don't have, a reason. You just, you don't think, oh, what does it involve? How we
yeah,
get there? I mean, just say yes and then, get there and do it, and I think that's everybody in the music business secret, everybody that you're going to come across is they're doers, if you know what I mean, and the ones that fall aside are the ones that think, oh fuck, I can't be bothered with this, or I don't like him. And you think we don't like him. You're going to see him for fucking 1 week. I mean,
yeah,
or you don't even know the guy, or he's going to be, he might not like you.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Just get on with it.
I'm going to ask you for your last track now, Bobby,
Okay.
and this is a song that you think many people may not know that you
Yeah.
would like them to listen to.
Well, obviously a big Bob Dylan fan, but there's an album by Bob Dylan called Self Portrait, which is probably the real, in my opinion, the real Bob Dylan album, right? The
Okay.
one the one that he really has shown you Bob Dylan, right? Warts and all, but a really honest him, right? And it even tells you on the cover, it's him painting himself, right? And he does all these songs that obviously he's nicked off of throughout his whole life, right? Nicked is probably not the right word. The songs that have made him become a songwriter, and also it's a really great insight into his process of his how he writes the song. And there's a track on it that was just 3 lines called "All the Tired Horses," right? And it's basically a little folk song, and he's not even singing on it.
Yeah,
He plays the guitar at the start and he goes, all the tired horses in the sun, how we going to get any riding done? Right? But he's really singing, how we going to get any writing done? Right? Because
yeah,
he was obviously going through, writer's block, or something was going on in his head. Maybe it was, I don't know, mythologies out there covering from a crash or whatever, right?
yeah,
But then the producer, Bob Johnson, takes those 3 lines, right? It makes it into the most beautiful 3.5 minute piece of music you'll ever hear in your life, right? Just to see girls, right? And it's got all this brass coming in and strings, and it's a Bob Dylan record. And
yeah,
he's probably been in there for 10 seconds, right? Signed the 3 lines to the girls, didn't even sing it, played the guitar, fucked off to do his next thing. And I think there's music and songwriting all in one go, right?
yeah,
He had enough brains to let the guy run with it. That's, I mean, watch Bob Dylan writing songs. He's always asking the guys in the band to do something. What do you want
mm,
here? Don't know. That's it. That'll do.
yeah,
Or the organ, but I know it's all cliched in that film, and he starts playing a little riff to like a Rolling Stone. But it did happen, and he did say in the studio, "What's that?" Because it
yeah,
was mixed the way down. Turn that up. I mean, that's what I love about recording is like you got this idea of the song in your head, but Campbell play a bass line, or Mick will do a guitar part, or Ken will sing a bit, and you'll think, fuck, oh, let's go that let's go that way. I'll do the same for their songs. And that's what I really like about that. And then we've been using this song now as a kind of intro music for when they go on stage. And the amount of people, including Douglas and Stephen Pastel, who are all Bob Dylan fans, right, who have never heard that song before, and come up and say to me, "What's that?" I remember after I played at the bar last, Stephen Pastel said, "What was that song you played before you went on stage?" And he went and bought it, had to buy it in import in America. I think that's fantastic. That takes you right back to being at school, right?
Yeah.
Where you, what's that album? Put it on, you can borrow it, coming back, and I'm going to, and then hunting to find it. Do you know what I mean? Like the Third Velvet album, Big Star. I'm trying to find Big Star. You couldn't find it anywhere. Luckily, they issued it about a year later. Because everyone was going around asking, "Can I buy a Big Star record?" But so to have that was a really lovely moment. And Stephen saying, "What's that song?" I felt 14 again. Oh,
Yeah.
I know. You don't know that song, do you? Right? Right? So it's like, it's great to have that, man. And again, that's a song. I tell you what I loved about Postcard the most, right? I think it was the greatest thing they did, right? Used to go write postcards, right? And I lived at home, right? So I'd go around here and I'd get there about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I'd leave about 11 o'clock at night, right? The whole day they played the same record, right? On one of those little record players that just, the arm went back and it went on again. And one of the ones I really remember the most was Everybody's Happy Nowadays by the Buzzcocks, right? So you'd have that in your head, it would just finish. Love's the illusion, life's a dream, right? Stop, click, go back, click, back on again. Everybody, and then it would be great. And then, Superman was another one by Lloyd Anderson. Randy Van Warmer, believe it or not, was another one, man. Like, you left just when I needed you most. Another one was Bonnie Tyler, Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Yeah.
Right? And but obviously between that was great because too, like Venus and Furs and like Jonathan Richman, but it was the ones that you wouldn't expect him to play that really got me. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And then to hear it on repeat, and it kind of like you kind of absorb it. You know what I mean, right? And then you realize when you go home, like the chord structure to that song is in your body, right? And the rhythm, and then that'll come out in a song one day, not stealing it or not robbing it, just becomes part of your kind of psyche, I guess, man. Right? And these are great things, like the Birds was another one they played, like they play a lot. So you want to be a rock and roll star, right? And then you're thinking, yeah, I do. You know what I mean? Like, just buy an electric guitar and learn how to play, like, I mean, so that's something that I've been getting into myself now, and I haven't got a record player that can do that, but you can repeat a song on your laptop just by just to press that little logo that repeats the song over and over again.
Mm.
And I've been really good, and that's one of the songs that I do it with, and then the great thing about it is now because of technology, you can play it all through your house, and every room you walk into is all the tired horses in the sun, and then before you know it, your girlfriend's singing it, your body's singing it, and they have no idea who it is or what it is, man. So that's the beauty of music right there, I think.
Absolutely. Well, Bobby, we make it nice and easy for the listeners of this podcast to check out that track and all the other tracks that we
Oh,
spoke
brilliant.
about because we do a nice little Spotify playlist to accompany
Thank you.
the show so people can go and listen to them. But everything else aside, everybody else's records that we've been chatting about, we've not
Yeah.
really spoke too much about what you're doing. So,
Yeah.
working on a new record, box set. Tell us about that.
Well, the box set is basically everything we've ever done. London Records was our major label, and they're back now. London Records are back. They're putting out lots of their bands out in box sets, and we're one of them. And they've really done our hats off to them. They've done a great job. The artwork is beautiful. The notes are beautiful. Will Hodgkins has done the notes for it, and he did that fantastic Lawrence, from a Felt book. It's got It's got all the radio sessions on it. It's got all the things that were recorded. It's got the real Elvis versions. You know what I mean? All the things we did with Elvis, and for us, I'm a completist anyway. You know, like I mean, I buy my own records, so like so I was first out to buy that. You know, so I can't wait to get it, and it's got singles on it, and then there's going to be a Last Night from Glasgow version with a flexi of Sugar Bridge from the session on it. There's going to be a Sahi Records version with a different each kind of outlet's got its own special little bonus thing. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? You know, it's then there's all the videos are on it. They've got on the video set. There's all the videos. So so it's just it's like you know it's just a great thing. It's again something you would never have envisioned happening. And then
yeah,
a few years ago, we finally brought out a second album called In the 21st Century, and that did really, really well. We got back in the charts and get back on the radio, and now we're going to follow that up now. We're just in the process of finishing that album, and we've got a great band. We've got Mick Slade and Dylan Mitri, and and guitar, and we've got Campbell from Aztec Camera, and we've got Douglas, who's like an industry in his own, Creeping Bent, and all the bands he's played with, and then me, Ken, and David, kind of like core of the Bluebells, and we've never played better or sounded better. You know, like I said, we're doing Glasgow, we're doing a lot of festivals. We've done a lot of gigs in the last couple of years, which we never thought would ever have a chance. Even doing the Barlands, but Barlands wasn't in a venue when we finished. So and that was probably one of the greatest nights of your life to have your. I remember seeing my wee boy at the front of the stage, well, big boys dead tall, beaming. You know what I mean, like. And he looked like a pure rock star as well, man. And he's come with us on a few gigs. Ken's voice DJ, now he's got his own club, he's got his own records coming out. David's daughters are singing. So it's all becoming like it's becoming like a, a great ending to a film, if you get my drift. I
yeah,
mean, like, it's like the Von Trapp family, we've been through. Because, I mean, in the music business, people don't understand that there's 100 times more lows than there is highs.
yeah,
But the strange thing about it is that the highs will always swamp the lows. I mean, right? There'll never be enough lows to take away the highs. You know what I mean? Right? The
yeah,
highs will always be, and I think that applies to everybody. I mean, the amount of miserable musicians we've met. You'd be shocked. I always
yeah,
think, what the fuck he's in this for? But the amount of ones you meet who are just so in love with it
yeah,
is fantastic. Right? And they're the ones that are going to, the ones who enjoy it are just fantastic.
yeah,
And man, I'm lucky to meet a lot of them. Dave Stewart's a great example, by the way.
yeah,
Yeah, Charlie's a great example. I mean, people who 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 don't need to work, they want to work.
yeah, yeah. If people want to keep up to speed with everything that's going to be happening with the
Yeah.
Bluebells, where's the best place to do that, Bobby?
Instagram, I think. Instagram, London Records, our Instagram, Facebook. I'm on Twitter, so is Ken, but Twitter's not quite where it was, I guess. But I think London Records are doing a really good campaign, and then we've done a lot of interviews lately. We're in a lot of press. We're doing a lot of radio. In fact, we're doing BBC this afternoon. So it'll get out there, and then we did Record Collector, was on my bucket list, by the way. I want to,
Fantastic.
yeah. So so all these kind of like, because I remember for a long period of time, especially after Hat was a hit again, we were kind of like erased from history. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was like, 100 Scottish famous 100 Scotland best bands. We were never on it. Even just as in Marmalade and Basic Wars were never on it. You know what I mean? Right? And now all of a sudden, because people like Stephen Pastel and stuff like that, we are kind of like back in the you know, we we used to be in the in that Spinal Tap thing. What happened? Where are they now, bucket man? Like, right? So we're now out of that, and we're now always into the. Oh, they were actually quite cool, bucket. I mean, right? So that's a big bonus for us.
Fantastic. Oh well, it's great to have you back there, um, Bobby. It's been an absolute pleasure
Yeah,
talking
thank you. I
records
really
with you,
enjoyed it
mate.
too. It's a great
And
format you've got, by the way. Really nice format. You know,
Oh,
the question, those questions are really good. I'd like to know. You know, I'm going to watch all your programs now to see what the facts. You know,
well, I've had a fair few Scottish bands on, so I'm trying to think. Oh, I've had have chosen some glorious records. I think I've had most of Franz Ferdinand Boys on, and Travis and Texas, and
yeah.
I'm trying to think who else I've had on from plenty. So, but yeah, there's over 600 episodes now, Bobby. So you got plenty
Well,
to get stuck into, mate.
I'll be doing some right after this. Don't worry. Okay,
Bobby, it's been an absolute pleasure. Best of luck
and
with the
you.
record and the box set,
Thanks, Stuart.
and hopefully catch you at a show at one point.
Please do. We're in London soon too with Gary Cowley, so at the end of the year. So try and come. Are you in London?
I am just outside London, and I know Gary as well. So,
Okay, brilliant. Well, tell me, we'll put you on the guest list for it. Okay.
absolute pleasure.
All right, Stuart. Take care,
Thanks,
mate. All the best.
Bobby. Bye bye,
Bye now.
mate.
Bye.